Hey, everyone.
Hey,
Um,
hey.
nice to meet you all. Well, we're from Prospel, Ali and Tharma. So let me just introduce myself. My name is Ali Rathor. I'm a university partnerships manager here in Prospel.
And I'm
And
Tharmendra Wemel. Oh, sorry about that, Ali. thought thought you were done. I'm content account manager, mainly work with employers to help them get on the platform, but also definitely work with universities. And when I'm not helping universities get the best hires they can possibly get when it comes to fresh grads, I'm trying my best to be a professional amateur golfer, but that's all I do in my free time.
mhm. And
Uh,
I've learned recently of how avid of a Tharman is into golfing. Like it's an every weekend thing with regular back issues. I'm not a golfer myself. I'm not into any sort of sports, but if I can best represent myself, I am a father to about a dozen plus cats.
he does love
Or
those
whatever.
cats.
I do love them. Let's hope they don't bother me right now in the next for the next 1 hour.
So now that you've gotten to know us a little bit, let's just move into the meat of this presentation. Today, me and Ali, besides just showing you how Prosple works, what we do, and why we do the things that we do, what we're actually going to be talking to you about in the beginning of this presentation is the fresh graduate experience. Why do fresh grads think the way that they think? What's going through employers' minds? And is that really the right thing to be thinking? And how we should prioritize our outlook when it comes to looking at fresh grad hires. And we'll get into this in more detail as we go on. But before that, let's just move into a bit about who Prospel is, how we started, and how do we get to this point in the journey so far. And for that, I'll pass it on to Ali.
Yeah, thank you. So Prospel, I think if I really want to put it into a simple word, we're an ed tech company for sure. Our major focus is we do a combined work with universities, student societies, colleges, government, and employers in ensuring that our platform has up-to-date job opportunities for fresh graduates, internship opportunities, and such. That's what majorly look like. On top of it, we do like webinars or like career services or for students to attend, meet with employers and such. So that's what we're doing right now. But I think if I show you the next slide here, we start off like in 2015. Um, and if I can say it short, we're very different from what we are today. Back in 2015, we launched as Grad Australia. Our major focus was Australia back then. And while we were connecting with universities, we were more towards providing like paperbacks. So our founders, who are Jeff and Jeff, they connect with employers in ensuring that fresh graduate jobs and internship opportunities are like in a booklet and such, and they distributed that among universities, among students. Of course, that led to our opportunity that was on our website, but we gained a lot of traction from that, and we gained a lot of success from there. With that, a few years along the line, in 2019, we decided to move further ahead, become a Prospel icon by business name, and expanded further into New Zealand and into Philippines. Since then, we're not exactly that booklet kind of a business anymore, but we just went into a digital transformation since last year. Expanded further into the Asian market with over 50 plus universities right now. So from Malaysia to um, India and Singapore and such, we're expanding further and further using our platform, which there is so much to that I've just described right now, and including it for every student and every employer.
Amazing. And that's essentially the timeline of Prospel. And Ali's already sort of touched on these things. But what I'm going to tell you is essentially the model. How does Prospel work and why are we different from other types of organizations that essentially do what we do? And why are we so sort of positioned for strong growth when we move into markets, especially when it comes to connecting fresh grads and employees? It's this circle, little ecosystem that we create when we move into any market. Prospel doesn't just work with employers. We're not just employer facing. We also, a big chunk of our work is working with universities itself, because we realize the symbiotic relationship between employers and universities. employers are always keen to getting new talent, and universities need that exposure. But there seems to be a big gap in terms of these entities connecting with each other. And that's the gap that Prosple tends to want to fill in every market that we move into. So essentially, when we go into a market, what Prosple does is we sort of split the business into two. We have a partnerships team, which is where Ali is, where we talk to universities, we talk to their job centers, we essentially help get them connected with our network of employees. We build them a white label site, and all of this is done completely free of charge. And all the universities have to do is then obviously get their students on it, show them that, oh, look, besides just a career center, which most universities have, we also have an online resource that has all these employers that are constantly posting jobs. And this is, of course, mirrored from our main sites that we have in every single region that we're in. So university students aren't necessarily locked in regionally as well. So just because it's a Malaysian university, it doesn't mean we're only going to show you jobs from Malaysian companies. The Prosple Network is essentially all over the world, all over the APAC region. And we give students exposure to those opportunities as well, helping them open their mind and sort of expand their worldview when it comes to where I can be working and what I can be doing. And why we got to partner with universities is, of course, so we can build that strong bond. And universities also have a vested interest in making sure that their students are on these platforms, using them and making sure that there's a constant influx of users for our employers, which is where I work in, the content account team, where we get them to sort of get on our website and not just post jobs, but also post relevant information to help students make the best career decisions possible when it comes to getting their first job. If Prosple can do that, where we send graduates that are making informed choices to employers, and employers are picking graduates that have already bought in due to the choices and information that we've provided them, we're doing a successful job because we're sending the right students to the right employers and everybody's happy in that cycle. So in terms of the ecosystem and how it works, that's essentially what Prosple goes for. And this is what we try to achieve in every market, where we create this symbiotic little ecosystem between employers, universities, and the platform. So that's who we are, what we do when we move into markets. But before we go into the platform per se, and I show you how it works, let's get into a little bit more of a discussion. The first thing I want to talk about today is the fresh graduate mindset. And what do I mean by the mindset? It's the decision-making process. We see a lot of fresh graduates feel a lot of challenges when they want to get their first job. When they leave university, there seem to be a number of variables that come into play at different levels for different students, depending on the exposure, the privilege, what they've done in the time when they're in university. But we can sort of pin it down to these few things that always seem to come up and affect the way that they look at the jobs that they are, intending to do, and they look at the industries that they want to work in. The first thing I want to talk about is pride, especially in Southeast Asia with the expansion and proliferation of education. We see that students, especially a lot of first generation students that are finishing their jobs, it's a very proud moment. And by all means, of course it is. They should feel proud. But with that pride comes a lot of doubt, especially when it comes to where can I work, where I should work, what industries am I allowed to like. We see that they place restrictions on themselves because they feel they have to fulfill some sort of prophecy that comes with, doing a degree in economics or doing a degree in finance. And this is the first variable that comes into play for most students when it comes to making career choices. And it really affects the way that they can process the information at hand and process sort of the worldview that they have to deal with in that moment, which is, oh, I'm leaving university and I have to get a job. Coupled with that pride, something that seems to affect students a lot is just emotion in general, right? And this emotion comes from many, many different factors and from many, many different, stakeholders within their experience as a fresh grad that's looking for a job. You have friends that have scholarships and have jobs, because they're locked in due to a bond. And, we have kids that don't have offers looking at that going like, oh my God, they have job security for 10 years. What do I have? Besides that, it's just, a friend may have another friend that has 10 offers for jobs and he may only have 3. And he's looking at the guy with 10 offers and going, oh my God, like, what am I doing? Maybe I need to, apply for more jobs, or maybe I need to take the first job that comes my way to make sure I'm locked in. And besides these 2 guys, there's another guy that has no offers and he feels even more pressured and he feels even more sort of convoluted emotions when it comes to making job decisions, and it sends them into a state of panic, right? And on top of all of that, there's the pressure of being a fresh grad and needing to get a job. It's the first time in your life you're really on your own. People expect you to get a job. Society expects you to be in a job by the time you end, when you're done with your degree. But there's so many more options, right? There's so much more to their experience. And a lot of the reasons that these three things even come into play is firstly this, students don't have a network to lean onto. All of us established professionals, we've been working for many years. If we have a problem, it's very easy for us to lean on to our network, right? It may not be someone we know directly. It could be a connection of a connection, but we can get that information. If I want to work in X organization today, and I know Ali has a friend there, I can simply just go, Ali, is it okay if you ask your friend, what's his opinion on working here? And then I get a nice little explanation. It may not be detailed, but enough information that I can start making an informed choice. Right? And that's what we need to do. When we help students make informed choices, things like pride, emotion, and pressure don't come into play anymore, right? They're more assured in their choices, they're more confident with their decisions. And it's essentially this, right? Because they lack knowledge and because there's a lack of information out there, it's sort of impossible right now for these students who are really underexposed to be making good decisions for them in regards to their first career choice, not their second or third career choice once they've been exposed, but the first career choice. And how, because there's a lack of information out there, coupled with the lack of knowledge that they have due to university syllabuses being the way it is and the internet being the way it is, and people usually get tunneled into their own little silos of information, the exposure is minimal and it's hard for them to make informed choices and be happy with the decisions that they're making. More often than not, what we actually see is students making decisions out of panic, students making decisions out of desperation, students making decisions out of just the extremely underexposed position that they are in, but them thinking that this is enough information for me to make a choice that's going to affect the first few years of my life. And everyone in the audience, I'm sure, can agree that the life you had an undergraduate and the life you had as a working professional is two completely different things. And these are the factors and variables that we really see affecting the way fresh grads make decisions. And this is something that Prosple is actively trying to change with the way that we do it. For the next thing, I'm going to pass it on to Ali, and he's going to talk to you about employers.
Yeah, thank you. So employers, they're on such a different spectrum than us, aren't they? Next slide, please. So I want to talk about most employers' experience when it comes to graduate hires. Now, whether we're talking about regionally, like in Malaysia or different countries, but I want to focus more on the global experience. There are tons of employers, yes. The ones that are more likely to hire fresh graduates come under a larger firm with thousands and thousands of employees. They have a structure in place. But when it comes to the portion of employment that they have, even though they're larger firms, they're still smaller in number, and they cover about 20 to 30% of employment. So what is left out is smaller firms, mom and dad, so mom and pop kind of companies and such that going to be hired more fresh graduates. But then there's a challenge over there. Like if Tarmac just tap next.
Sorry.
No problem. So one of them is the employers believe that there's a lack of skill. Now, there isn't a lack of skill. The student just went into a 4 years, 5 years, depending on the kind of graduation they're going into, and spent heavily on getting the right education. But either they say it's an experience thing or a skill thing, and they have a list of things. It makes sense. We've just in the last 2 decades, we have changed from a 4:3 monitor and using maybe at best like Microsoft Word, Google Excel, to just so many tools now. And a lot of employers now are heavily dependent on these tools, and they consider these tools very relevant to skills. So a lot of employers we connect with are afraid of hiring fresh graduates because this is what they consider skills. Does this person use a CRM? Is he aware of these marketing tools? And when they're hiring people from other firms, experienced people, the person who's used the same tool, the person who's had maybe a similar experience in terms of job responsibilities has a higher probability because that's what they're connecting with. And it connects to the next bit, which is longer onboarding periods. So employers, in any way, for them, an onboarding period is a cost. They're considering from the time they've hired somebody to the point that that person is now productive. So let's assume when I joined Prosple or anyone here from Open Learning and such, from the moment we join, we go through an onboarding period. We learn about their functions, their business, how do they do things. We start getting into that work, and eventually we start becoming a bit productive. Usual businesses recognize a onboarding period to be about 3 months long. That's a cost for them. They're thinking about salaries. They're thinking about benefits that they're offering. They're thinking about the tools that are being used, from different tools like, for example, basic Gmail to CRMs like Salesforce, Copper, and such. They're all added costs based on each individual resource that they have. So there's a lot of investment from employers. And generally, one of the reasons why they don't want to, they want to avoid fresh graduates is because they believe the onboarding periods are longer. Maybe instead of a 3 months period where the person will be as productive as all the other resources, it might take about 6 months. So let's say if I'm coming from the top of my head, if at a usual like 500 to 1,000 employees company, the average cost, including salary, is about 5,000 US dollars. For a experienced resource, that's about 15,000 until they start becoming productive, and 30,000 for a fresh graduate. So that's another reason why a lot of employers that we connect with have a problem in hiring fresh graduates, because they're thinking it from a revenue perspective. But what do we do here? And what misconceptions that they have do we tackle with? So here are some facts, and I'm only going to lay out two. Number one, fresh graduates more easily connect and advocate for the company, for its culture, for its mission. Again, we're from a very different world now than 20 years ago. Social media is everything. Branding leads to a lot more revenue. Getting the name right, getting that word of mouth is very important. And that includes having your resources, your employees being advocates for your business. Nothing but positive things to say. Businesses spend a lot of money in just scaling this information, like what is my word of mouth value? And the first difference between an experienced resource and a fresh graduate is this prospect. Fresh graduates come with a new experience, who come with a fresh mind, and they're very easily molded into this behavior, into this experience, into being positive, like tellers of the company. And this is something we share with them because a lot of companies now spend heavily on engagement in these areas. They use third-party tools. They use a lot of services to ensure that they're able to gather the details they need to know how their employer's experience is and they're while working with them, and then they spend a lot to make that experience better. But when they're working with fresh graduates, they generally see a better trend compared to experienced resources, because as an experienced person, I've been there, I've done that, I've had better companies, I've had worse companies, and I'm able to make a more stronger opinion of how I feel about this company. But a fresh graduate is seeing sun and stars. They're seeing a lot better experience. They're in their honeymoon period for a long time over here. There's another fact to this area why we push our employers to focus on hiring fresh graduates. Fresh graduates tend to have a longer retention period. Now, keep in mind, I said it's all about cost. So What is the longer retention period? Well, basically, just like there's a cost to hiring somebody, there is a lot of manpower spent by recruitment teams and such to get the right talent. Once those 3 months, 6 months periods have passed, then they start being productive. It's basically a sale for any business. They're spending a lot of money to get the customer in. They're spending a lot of money to get that sale through. Now that person's finally being productive, we want to ensure that they stick around for longer. And fresh graduates have a tendency of sticking around longer than experienced resources. You hire someone who just came out of their college, their university, the average retention ratio depends on company to company, but it tends to be at least 1.5 times longer than someone who is an experienced resource. I can give my own example. The first company I joined, I didn't leave them until they actually let me go. They downsized. But since then, when I started working at other places, then I started looking while working at one particular place. I looked at other opportunities and I hopped more easily than ever because I'm more confident about that, because I have the experience and I know of the challenges that I might have around it. So very important detail that when we try to connect employers with our universities and they have these sort of challenges like not fresh graduates. Because again, keep in mind, we're trying to get a bigger and bigger profile. Smaller companies that have like from a few hundred to a few thousand employees, they generally don't post jobs for fresh graduates. So we tackle them with this basis that think about your revenue. It's a return on investment hiring in fresh graduates. Maybe a little longer when they start to become productive, but then once they do start becoming productive, you're getting a net return on them for a longer period of time. And we all know, whether it's a university employer, we're all looking at revenue. We're all looking at the funds, how we're handling them, and how they're moving along annually. So this is the dark side and what Prosple is really doing in making a change. I'm going to share it with Tharma now to share our next topic.
Well said, Ali. And just to round out the things that we've been talking about, I want to talk about basically the harms of not prioritizing, quality over quantity when we just essentially hire fresh grads for the sake of what essentially becomes community service. I have a graduate program because graduates need jobs, and not I have a graduate program because I'm here to develop top quality talent that's for my company and make sure that they are productive for me in the long run. So besides just making sure that companies have access to fresh graduates all around the region, Prosple's main mission here is to ensure that the best fit fresh graduates for every organization are landing at those organizations that they are fit for. And there's a reason we do this, right? Because when we let graduates make poor decisions, when we don't help create that buy-in, when we don't give them the ability to make informed choices that they are comfortable with, we end up paying the price for those actions. We end up bearing the brunt, the consequences of that decision-making process. And a few of those things are really harmful in the long run, especially for the stability and longevity of organizations. The first thing that I want to talk about is course correction. And this is extremely important because it's essentially the biggest harm that every employer faces with. Because of the variables that I was talking about in the beginning, pride, emotion, pressure, not knowing enough before you make a decision, and then basically locking yourself into a 2-year contract. Most graduates don't even want to be where they're at. They end up working many moons. Companies aren't taking the effort to make sure that, they actually are comfortable with the things that they are doing. They're just letting them go through the graduate program. And then basically in 1.5 years, when the company is prepared to maybe give them a role with more responsibility, put them somewhere else, take them out of that graduate program and then absorb them, they leave. And then it's 1.5 years of training and essentially what Ali was saying, where you're basically trying to make that sale, you're trying to lock them in and go like, yes, this is for you. They end up saying, I don't want to do this anymore. They end up leaving and you end up bearing the brunt of that course correction. You then have to start the process all over again. You have to look for graduates that fit that bill, or at least you think fit that bill, and hope that in 1.5 years, when you're ready to move, whoever you feel is good enough for the positions that you had, don't want to leave you as well. And you don't have to start that process over and over again. It's tedious. And more often than not, it's needless. We can avoid this by making sure that the graduates that apply to our organizations already want to work there, at least to some extent, whether it's because of the culture, whether it's because of the way we work, whether it's because of the things that we do. But we have to make sure that these kind of informations are readily available for these graduates in order to make these informed choices, and so that we don't bear the brunt of that course correction that they then take. No harm to them, of course. In life, we only have one, and you got to live it, in a way that sort of makes you happy. But it's still a harm, and it's still something that we can avoid if everyone were to meet halfway, and employers were to help create an environment where students can make informed choices. And that's something Prosple pushes employers to do every day. Besides that, there are longer succession cycles. This is extremely harmful, right? If I don't have talent within my company that I trust, that already know the inner workings of my organization and basically is used to the way that we work, it's hard for me to put that talent through the ranks and make sure that they are in, more exposed to leadership positions and have the ability to be leaders in my organization. If they're leaving and it's constantly, we're shuffling the talent pool, it's hard for me to then entrust someone and put them in a leadership role. I'm more often than not going to have to get a senior hire, get a high level hire, put them in those positions and hope that it works out, hopes that they, jive with the way that we run as an organization, that we run as a company. And essentially that's a gamble, right? We'd like to be able to sort of get the return on investment from the talent pool that's already existing within our companies. And the only way we can do that, again, is by making sure that these people don't feel like they're being blindsided by the way that our organizations are run. And we do that, again, by making sure there's information available. The third thing is there's less internal talent for companies to lean on to. And this is problematic. If you're constantly training people, it's extremely tedious. It's extremely risky, essentially, right? Because internal talent is amazing for a few reasons. One, if you've trained up enough internal talent, they essentially do a lot of informal training for a lot of your new employees. They've worked there for a long time. They know how the office works. They know how the team works. They know how other teams work, and they can easily translate this to new people that come to the team, right? But if your new team is constantly filled up with, new joiners, constantly filled up with graduates that aren't sure of what they want to do or whether they are right for this position in the first place, you're going to have a lot of doubt in those teams. You're going to have a lot of teams that are unsure of what they want to do, unsure if they're even right for the job, and unsure if they can even perform in these roles. And these are all unnecessary harms that don't have to be things that we have to deal with if and only if we give these graduates the ability to make an informed choice and be confident in the decisions that they're making when they join our organization. We want to make sure there's internal talent that's there to lean on to, that can handle the way that we work, that know the way we work, that we are not constantly putting ourselves in a cycle of hoping and training people to see that, oh yeah, they can join, or that's good for us. We give graduates the information they want, they end up staying longer, and that's better for us in the long run. And that's an amazing thing, not just for graduates, but clearly for organizations as well. The last thing I want to talk about, and this is extremely important, right? Just to round this all up, no buy-in equals no performance out of them. And you are fighting an uphill battle from day one. If someone has doubt, they're never going to believe in themselves. They're never going to believe that this is something that they can do. And they won't even see the potential that they can maximize in their roles. And you're constantly, besides just training them, convincing them that, oh, you are talented. Oh, yes, we see the potential in you. Oh, we have all these plans for you. And you're trying to convince them, right? It's an uphill battle. But if we were to just reposition ourselves and sort of redesign the way that we recruit in a sphere that's informative, we can create that buy-in. We can help graduates make informed choices. And by the time they show up at your doorstep, by the time you get that application, the buy-in's there already. And then you are just picking from talent that wants to be in your organization. And then, like what Ali said, right, it's just a matter of training them, getting them ready for the job, and then they are ready to flourish in those roles in the long run, which is something everybody wants, right? Nobody wants to be constantly flipping jobs here and there because they're unsure of it. And nobody wants to be unsure in themselves. We can stop all of this and help employers and help employees by getting information out there and creating spheres of knowledge and banks of knowledge for them to access when they want to make these decisions. That's essentially the theoretical side of this, why these problems exist. But now let's see what Prosple is doing to make sure that we change these things, right? That we can create these spheres and banks of information that I was talking to you about, and we can help students and fresh grads make informed choices with high levels of buy-in when it comes to working at organizations. The first thing is, like I said, right, we have an extremely wide network for employers. It's not like before where, oh, I need an engineering degree, so I'm going to look at engineering universities, or I need to recruit Malaysian graduates from a specific region. Prosple doesn't work like that, right? We don't make you go and hit every single one specific stakeholder so that you can engage with them. We engage with as many stakeholders as possible within a region, and we give you the ability to post one time and hit as much of our platform as you can, right? One job submission is all it takes. So in terms of hitting talent pools, getting into passive markets that you wouldn't have normally been able to access, Prosple's at the forefront of making sure that you have accessibility to these fresh grad pools of talents in all these markets. Besides that, as you can see, it's definitely not just getting pushed to our main site, it's getting pushed to graduate sites, study sites, sector sites. The list of our partners is long, right? And it's not limited to universities as well. We have, student associations, we have postgrad associations, we have student associations that have nothing to do with like learning per se, but we just know are good for students, right? As long as we see pools of talent in these places, as long as we see that students can benefit from having access here, we are going to hit those sectors for you, and then we're going to give you access to those markets. And that's the Prosple difference. That's how we make sure employers have the most amount of exposure when it comes to talent. And that's how we make sure, and that's one of the ways that we make sure that we send the top quality graduates to your doorstep application wise. To continue this explanation, I'm going to pass it over to Ali.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we're designed to basically get the right kind of experience for students. And over here, we're just going to show you a few screenshot stuff of how it works. So our platform from scratch is only intended for students. Our traffic is not based on no experienced resource going to look up. So all these different job sites, depending on regions. So for example, Job Street and such in Malaysia, there is tons of noise over there that is not even intended for fresh graduates, from hiring experienced resources to managers and 10 years of experience of job. None of that noise is going to be there. Every job position that they're going to see over here, that they're going to search through, is going to appear only for that fresh grad. And it's a really simple process for them to look over. They can choose what kind of opportunity they're looking for. So from actual fresh grad job opportunity to internship to even clerkship and such. And then they can also include what are they studying right now to find what kind of employers are opening opportunities with this matched information. Next slide, please. So with that done, what students get and what we focus on basically is, like Karma shared, we're more into helping students making informed decisions. So on our platform, when a student is looking at an employer, they're not just seeing the job description, or at best, if it's a very gracious employer, the salary. We're focused on helping them making informed decisions. So they get to see reviews about that employer, and not reviews by customers, not reviews by other employees, reviews who were also recently fresh graduates. So an experience shared by a person who is in the similar bubble. So they get to look at reviews. They get to know these different details, like how much the employer is involved into diversity and such, which we'll share next slide. They will look at graduate stories, what the usual graduate experience is. So if you look at from the left, they can get details like what are the pros and cons of working with this employer. Employers usually that work with us or that we're trying to onboard with us have a concern like, pros, yeah, but I'm not sure about cons. But we push them towards it. We're like, we're about helping them get more better applications than a pool of applications that they would just have to work with. Because again, for employers, for companies, it's cost interviewing people. It's a lot of resources that are interviewing the recruitment team and such. If we can get them more crisp applications, if we can get them more crisp fresh graduates that are looking for those opportunities while they have gone through all these details, they're saving themselves time in getting the right talent, and they're saving themselves time into getting them onboarded. So these are all the details that we focus on. Plus, you might see in the middle that green icon circles. That's basically the reviews. Like I said, what are the prospects like? How involved are they in social responsibility? And that's something that now with recent, with newer and newer generations, these students, it's become even a bigger norm than I could say for a generation in my mom and dad's time. Similarly, diversity. We're working with different regions. We know that there are people of different representations. Is the employer focused on catering them all? So all in all, we help our students, we help our users that come on our platform to get more detail than what they're usually aware of. Help them make informed decisions. And with these decisions, whatever employer they're going to get into, they're more prepared for it, they're more aware of it, and they are going to make stronger decisions for themselves. So joining the company with a very positive emotion. Next slide, please. So this is another example, day in the life stories. So with these informed decisions, they can look at the other recent graduates working over there. So what they look at is a whole story of waking up in the morning at 8 a.m., going through their day. How are they commuting to work? Are they working from home? And how their entire day experiences. It's a story like a blog that they write down with images of their work environment and such. And again, like Thomas shared, students are in a very romantic period when applying for their first job. We really want to cater to that. And this is just another detail on top that we add to.
Love that, Ali. And just if I may add on a few things, the reason we even do any of this, it boils down to what I was saying before, right? Buy-in. If I don't send a university graduate to your application, like if I don't send the graduates to you that have buy-ins, those applications are essentially the same as any application that's coming from anywhere else. And then we're not doing a service to the employers that are on our website, and we're not doing a service to the students that come there to look for information in the first place. We do all of this to create buy-in. We do all of this to empower the choices that students make. And we do all of this to make sure that the graduates that end up at your doorstep sending you applications want to be a part of your organization. They are ready to contribute. I'm sure when Ali was showing you all this and you saw the little sad faces, I'm sure some of you all had a little, maybe a bit of trepidation when it came to these things. But just to reassure you, everyone knows that the best candidates in the world know that there's no such thing as a job that is sunshine and rainbows 24/7. The best candidates in the world want to know what the other side of the coin is like, because that's when they can identify with the job. That's when they can relate to the position. That's when they can put themselves in the shoes of the people that are working in these roles and go, I can do this, I can contribute, I can perform, I can excel in this organization, and I can do amazingly in this role. But it all starts with this. It all starts with creating a bank where they can look and see the honest truth, right? So they don't feel blindsided. And that's when employees, more often than not, feel more betrayed than any other situations, when you told them one thing and then it completely ends up playing out like something else. We make sure that these reviews are from their peers so that they have the empowerment to know that we aren't interfering with these things, that it's not the voice of someone older coming in and imposing their thoughts. We make sure it's peer-reviewed information from people that they respect. This is the generation of reviews. Before you buy something on Shopee, you're looking at reviews. Before you watch a movie, these kids are Googling it, and we pander to that, right? We make sure that they get information from respected sources so they can feel confident in the decisions that they're making when it comes to applying to your organization. And this is why Prosple does any of this to start with. We have these sort of resource banks, because students aren't going to ask these questions to recruiters, right? They're scared to ask, oh, is it really 9 to 5? Am I going to have to work longer than that? They're scared to ask recruiters about work from home. They're scared to ask recruiters about lunch hour and who they can have lunch with and are there social activities outside of work. Students aren't programmed to have the empowerment to ask these questions. So we answer the questions before they even have them in their head, right? And again, when they look at a day in the life, they see that it's something, oh yeah, I can work here. This is totally okay. And we have days in the life of people in office. We have days in the life of people that are working from home. We have days in the life of people that are in factories and basically like, oh, look, this is me in front of my little refinery. And it's all amazing, right? And it all may be mundane content to people that have been working for years and years and years already, because we obviously know what it's like. We know what the grind is like, but students do not. As Ali said, right? Idealistic, my first job. We need to give them the ability and avenue to relate, to give them the avenue to create that buy-in within themselves. And this is how we do it through all these resource informations. And know that we don't do it for no reason, right? The stats don't lie. They love the reviews, they love the graduate stories, they love the days in the life. These are the things that the students want to see. And these are the things that help them make decisions that they are confident in. And confidence is key here. When a student is confident with your organization and your organization's ability to give them a good experience, then that's your absolute license to tap that potential and really get the most out of these talents, and know that, you are in good hands. We have quite a number of employers that span throughout the APAC region, and they trust us to help them get the best talent through their doors, right? And it's through these methodologies that help us achieve these things for all these people and hopefully your organization or your university, right? Ask away, ask any question you want. Me and Ali are open to answer anything. I see we have a few already, so we'll get to that. But if you have any questions that don't get answered during this presentation, or you just want to know more about anything, do email us. You can email us about anything. It's not specific. You don't have to make sure you're an employer before you email me, and you don't have to make sure you're at a university before you email Ali. Just whoever's face you think is prettier, send us an email and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible and help you with your thing. So that being said, this is the Q&A section. So please ask away, ask as many questions as you want. I'll pass it back to Ali and he can go for the first question.
Yeah, let me get the first question. So we've got, what is the success rate in advocating employer to hire fresh graduate in your experience? Does it differ between countries and regions? Wow. Okay, so I don't think we've really scaled in terms of that, but we are more actively towards it. So for example, next month we have a virtual career fair where it's just focused on startup companies and such. So we are getting them in. But yes, I would say that it does differ between countries and regions. As we've expanded, we learn about different culture aspects that comes into connecting with these employers. And that basically what would mean is the time from connecting, from like speaking with someone at the reception to connecting with the right person. They do put up challenges about their own region. They have expectations. The jobs board function differently. Student quality is different. But at the end, it does still come down to that point where we are helping them make decisions by saying that it's a revenue focus and there is more towards revenue than looking at the data that they have right now. And this is a common fact. Data is amazing, but it could be misrepresenting what you're getting at because you're already assuming one answer. Fresh graduates are still very, very revenue relevant. Cool. Let
agree, Ali.
Let me post up the next question. We've got, do Prosple only focus on fresh grads from higher universities? How about grads from other institutions such as Polytechnic or grads focusing on low-skilled jobs in Malaysia? So at the moment, we're new in Malaysia. We are setting up our ground. We're connecting with the right people. And we're in a mix of meeting with all sorts of roles. It is intended for students with 16 years of school education and such. But for example, polytechnics for sure, especially for example in Singapore, where we've connected with employers, and they are more interested in getting applications from polytechnic students than another case. So all in all, in time, we are gathering resources from everywhere. That is a fresh experience.
And just to add on to that, I think the word fresh grad, especially the way Prosple uses it, is really more just to sort of give people, because that's what people kind of put that 23 to 25-year-old sort of, human being and where they are at this stage of their life. If you don't have a university degree, so what? Like, go to the website. There will be stuff there that you can, maybe it's an internship, maybe it's a virtual experience, maybe it's even a job, right? We cater to everyone. In terms of qualifications for job roles, that's completely up to the employers. If employers say that they don't need a degree to apply for this role, and that's going to be on the Prosple website. So in terms of working with employers, we work with all types of employers. And just to reinforce what Ali said, we work with all types of universities as well. There's no limiting factor here. We would like to hit as many student and talent pools as possible and give everyone a fair chance at being able to get a job, especially a first job that they love. Yep, you can go ahead for the next question, Ali.
Cool. So next question by Jasmine. Do you already screen through these new talents graduates because the standards of quality vary from place to place? What are your metrics? So we're not in the process of screening them. Our main focus is helping students. I think this is something I shared very much in the beginning, or maybe I didn't focus on it enough. Our founders were graduates themselves, right? And they had challenges when they graduated. One of them, they're both like the first two, they're both named Jeff and Jeff, one under the G and one under the J. One went to England from Australia to work in a different field than what he was actually educated in. The other one got into sales. And they had this experience where they didn't know how to get into right. They lacked experience. So they came up with this platform from the understanding that students who are about to go in the job market, who are about to look into internship, need to know more about what's available, need to know more of what that company does, whether that meets their perspective on the world, the opportunities they want to focus on, and which is why we built this platform. So we're not in the process of screening these students. We're helping them gather more detail, get to know the company more before applying. And what we're positioning with our employers is these applications that you're getting. Look at the amount of time these students are spending into making the right decision. Now that they've applied, there's a very likely chance that they're more aligned with your mission than the 1,000 applications that you get from these other job sites. So we don't even consider ourselves a job site. We're more like providing opportunities to students and helping them making informed decisions.
On the money, Ali. Exactly. I don't think it's about us being the be all end all of what is quality at the end of the day. And you're definitely right. Quality may vary from place to place, Jasmine, but what an employer considers quality also varies from organization to organization. And Prosple doesn't want to be a barrier to entry when it comes to any of these students engaging with any of these employers. They have employers at the end of the day do have the final say. But like what Ali was saying, right? If we can give the right student the right information, that quality, especially the quality that specific employer is looking for, is going to shine through. And that's when we know we're doing the right thing and we're doing our job well, because we're sending the right students to the employers. We're not just sending them students. To answer your next question, Jasmine, I see you have two. Does Prosple work with employees to manage their talent post-employment? No, we don't. We connect, essentially, it's sort of a middleman situation where we work with all the stakeholders and we connect all the stakeholders, but In terms of post-employment, that's completely up to the employer. We don't really interfere with that. That's between the employee and the employer. You want to go for the last one, Ali?
Yeah, I think we can both pitch in working with universities and employers. So what has been, last question by Sophia, what has been the feedback from the universities and employers, especially from Malaysia? So like we shared, we're fairly new. We discovered how successful we are. We were so much successful that we had a lot of money to expand further on. So far with the universities and employers we've connected with, the challenges are the same. They're not aware. They're don't even think from this perspective about providing more information for students, building more information. With universities, feedback is more positive, where it's an opportunity that we're placing in. We're focused on partnerships so that we can get the right talent at the right time. But we're partnered with Open Lending for this so that we gather the right detail, we gather the right universities, and build our profile. With employers, it's still very positive, but I'll leave it up to Tharma to talk about
that. Yeah, it actually is really positive. I will say that as a Malaysian bringing this product to the Malaysian market, even I had maybe 1 or 2 doubts in my head as to what the reception was going to be like. And, I will say that, especially when I initially talk about these things with employers, you can see a little bit of hesitation. But at the end of the day, it's about translating that value to the employers, right? And employers can see the value in creating buy-in for fresh grads, because employers, more than anyone, know the struggles. They know the struggles of, liking a candidate and not getting to recruit them, or liking a candidate and them leaving you halfway through their tenure and you really not getting to maximize their relationship, even though you know that they'd be great here. And it all starts with what Prosple is trying to do, right? We create buy-in, we avoid these problems. So it's a bit of give and take here, of course. We are sort of changing the landscape when it comes to what information is available to graduates, especially in Southeast Asia. But it's all for positive change, right? Employers get better candidates through their doors, and that's going to mean more revenue, better succession cycles, more talent to lean on to, more internal talent that is more vested in success of that company. And students get jobs that they are happy with in the first place, and they don't spend the first 2 years of their employment resenting every decision that led them up to that point. And then basically at the age of like 28 go, oh yeah, actually I can do things that I like. And that's too late. I mean, it's not too late. Of course, it's never too late, but in the sense of, time passing and, you being able to really invest yourself in a mission and an organization that you believe in and want to see prosper, most students don't have that opportunity, and Prosples that help create that opportunity for them. So it's extremely symbiotic. Employers benefit greatly from this, and students benefit greatly from this. And what could be better than that? Yeah. But I guess in terms of the questions, that's all that has been asked. If you guys have any more, by all means, email it to me and Ali, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. If you want to know more about Prosple, again, email us and we can set up a quick chat, explain this to you, and we can move on. But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys had a wonderful day, had a wonderful time listening to us, and we'll catch you guys at the next Open Learning Symposium 2022.
Yeah, lovely seeing you all, and hoping for further conversations from here. Thank you, everyone. See you around.